By Merav Michaeli, former leader of the Israeli Labour Party, a current member of the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee. Welcome to you. First of all, Israel's public broadcaster publishing what it says is a draft of a Lebanon ceasefire proposal. It would mean Israeli forces pulling out within 7 days of a deal, full implementation over 60 days, the US cautioning against it. But do you see any hope of a rapid ending to the war in the north in Lebanon?
The majority of Israelis want an end to this war. We want our hostages back, first and foremost, and I know that you have been with a family of hostages in Israel, and you know how deeply everybody is hurting over those 101 people who've been there for over a year now. So we want to see an end to this war. Hezbollah started this war completely unprovoked by Israel, only to identify with the Palestinians. He's been fighting Israel over a year now, bombarding Israel, and people don't realize this. We are being bombarded on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. We have 80,000 people misplaced from their homes within Israel for over a year now. So yes, we would very, very much like to see an end to this war. But we need to know that we are safe. We need to know that we're not being penetrated from the north. We need to know that that they don't keep shooting at us. Hezbollah never respected, never agreed to 1701, the agreement that was the end of the
2006 war, which would push Hezbollah back past the Litani River, and that was never enforced, is what you're saying.
Exactly. They never agreed to it. It was never enforced. We will not go back to the same routine of being...
1701 is in this ceasefire agreement. I mean,
it needs to be implemented this time. It needs to be enforced. It needs to be such that will really assure Israel's security. Anna, with your permission, I think there is one thing that is very, very difficult for people in Europe, in Britain. It's very difficult for them to understand. Israel is tiny. It's 2 hours a drive from east to west. It's a 10-hour drive from north to south. That's all. And we have those terrorists on our borders. And they've been slaughtering us, and they have been bombarding us constantly. And so when we talk about security, it is not something theoretical. And when you hear all those leaders, of course, starting from Iran, saying that they are out to destroy the state of Israel and to eliminate the people living there, they mean business. So we have to protect ourselves.
I was in Tel Aviv for the anniversary of October the 7th. We started the morning with a rocket attack from Hamas. We then had a ballistic missile sent by the Houthis in Yemen. And at the end of the day, rockets fired from Hezbollah from Lebanon. But the world has had enough of seeing children die in Gaza, of neighbourhoods of displaced people being attacked, of hospitals being besieged, of people without adequate food or water, with reports by the United Nations that it will take 350 years to rebuild Gaza. Enough is enough.
Do you know why nobody speaks about rebuilding Syria, for instance? Because the power that brought to the destruction of Syria is still in power there. And the power that has brought to the destruction of Gaza, which is Hamas, is still in power there. We have to understand that Hamas are not people who want the two-state solution. I am a head of a party. I used to be a head of a party that is the party of the late Yitzhak Rabin, who brought about the two-state solution, who still am fighting for it. But Hamas do not recognize the state of Israel or its right to exist. These are not people with whom you can, and they have been oppressing their own people. When we talk about humanitarian aid to Gaza, Israel is bringing in tons and tons and tons of humanitarian aid on a daily basis. It's been stolen by Hamas. The same way all the resources they have been getting for 15 years have been stolen to accumulate just arms in order to attack Israel.
And build the tunnels. I know the accusations. You talk about Yitzhak Rabin.
It's not accusation. This is the reality.
You talk about Yitzhak Rabin, famously of the Oslo Accords, himself assassinated. And yet you currently have a leader in place in Israel who does not believe in the two-state solution. Sure. So what does he want for the Palestinians? He doesn't want them to have a homeland. So people are suspicious about what he's doing in northern Gaza. What do you think the intention is for northern Gaza from the current government in Israel?
Well, thankfully, he said on record that there's no intention of settling in northern Gaza, only in maintaining the border,
so
which is the international border.
Though, do you think is this push back the Palestinians to create a buffer zone? Is that the idea?
Listen, I am really the #1 opposition to Netanyahu in Israel, have been forever. I am the only one on the current opposition who's never agreed to sit with him under any circumstances. And one of the things that I disagree with him on is what the day after in Gaza should look like. And I think there should be we should use that as a step one towards a trajectory towards a political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We should get the Palestinian Authority as part of the new government that will be formed in order to replace Hamas in Gaza.
So you say that the Israelis are feeding those in Gaza, but the main mechanism for that was UNRWA, the United Nations aid organisation, with thousands of members, some of whom had been accused of being involved in October the 7th last year. Who will feed the Palestinians if you don't have that mechanism in place?
Well, first and foremost, they haven't been accused. Even UNRWA itself said that 9 of its employees were physically, and they're on film, seen. They are ones who took, they did not go over the border for a field trip. They have murdered, they have raped, they have abducted and kidnapped the hostages who are still there.
I accept that, but you pull thousands of people who are working in Gaza and replace it with what?
No, first of all, so UNRWA itself admits it, but it has never apologized for it, nor has it said anything about maybe rethinking the way it's recruiting its workers, maybe rethinking the way it's managing its workers and making sure nothing like that happens.
Okay, I understand. How do you get the aid to people in the Palestinian areas if you pull the only organisation that actually sufficiently does it?
So first of all, and again, we need to understand, UNRWA, even those who are not terrorists and are not part of Hamas, are abducted by Hamas. Hamas actually is taking everything and the facilities it's been using UNRWA's facilities. It's been imposing on its workers and just taking the food from them.
So I understand the accusation against it, but there's nothing to fill the whole of it.
The food the food will continue to go in, and then the legislation first and foremost means that in Jerusalem, the Palestinians in Jerusalem will now be dealt with and be taken care of by the Jerusalem municipality, which, they're living under it. So
with the best will in the world, we're not worried about people in Jerusalem. We're worried about people in Gaza getting adequate aid.
The humanitarian aid that's coming in will continue to come in, but we need to work towards a mechanism that does not steal it away from them, but is giving it to them. And UNRWA is something that Israel cannot trust today, and especially when, as I said, is subjected to Hamas. So we need to work. I'm telling you seriously.
Yeah.
First of all, in general, and when you zoom out a little bit, UNRWA is something that has to close down completely because it has been perpetuating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and making sure that there is no two-state solution.
I have a final question for you. Looking to the next year, do you have any optimism that the wars currently underway in that region will be over?
First of all, I believe that optimism is a political choice. And so I have to be optimistic. The late Prime Minister Golda Meir once said that a Jew does not have the privilege of not being an optimist. I am working in order to finish these wars. I am in Israel. I am fighting against Netanyahu, against his wrong policies, in order to finish those wars, to bring back the hostages and to rebuild the future for Israel and for our neighbours. I believe it is possible. Let's work for it together.
Merav Michaeli, good to have you here. Opposition leader. I think that's the easiest description for you right now, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.